underground, we have hundreds of people hiding, innocent people, children and women, and we are receiving videos from them asking for support, asking for hope, asking for liberation and to get out of there, asking for the future.
Hello, my name is Donald, and welcome to the #1 media company, WorldView. At WorldView, we explore everyone's perspectives on all things that can broaden our worldview. Today, we're chatting with the Ukrainian ambassador to South Africa, Mozambique, and Botswana, Liubov Abravitova. Ambassador, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Mr. Brown.
So, Ambassador, let me start off by saying that my thoughts and the thoughts of our viewers most certainly go out to the citizens of the Ukraine, and we all hope for a speedy resolution to this conflict. What is your opinion or the Ukrainian government's opinion on the current situation in the Ukraine?
Well, there cannot be two opinions on the current situation. The open invasion is already happening for more than 50 days. It's almost 2 months. It caused a huge humanitarian crisis, and it already showed a huge numbers of victims of this war, especially among the civilians. What I want to stress on is that because of this war, the number of civilians died is much bigger than the number of military people of Ukraine died. So the fights are now very much concentrated in the eastern part of Ukraine. You see, and all of us are watching how it's unfolding in Mariupol, and our thoughts and prayers there with our people who are basically just locked without any hope. And continue to fight back with Russian occupants and continue to believe that Ukrainian military forces will be strong enough to liberate them and to protect them.
Yeah, so I would definitely going to focus on the current situation. I just want to briefly go back to the past and focus on President Putin's justifications for invading the Ukraine. So first of all, he alleges, and the Russian government alleges, that there were apparent atrocities or genocides, even genocides committed in the eastern part of Ukraine. Is there any truth to this?
Of course, it's not the truth. You know, we have a proverb in Ukraine that the truth is always for everyone somewhere in the middle. So as soon as you have a bigger lies, then your middle will be somewhere that everyone can more or less respect your point of view. That's what is happening with Russian propaganda and obviously with the messages of Putin. It's nothing to do with the situation that was happening there. And you know that Russia started their war in Ukraine in 2014, and they killed till the beginning of open invasion already 14,000 people. So they have to now explain themselves, and that's what they're doing with the even harsher propaganda. Then with the terms of genocide, I would be very careful at all. Especially it's something that you have to take into consideration, having the history of Rwanda here. And you know that this terms legally has something underneath of itself. So we see Russian occupants on our territory already for more than 8 years. We were calling to all international community to look at the atrocities that they were making since 2014. And we were appealing on different platforms of international organizations to stand with Ukraine, to bring the diplomatic solution. And I believe that if more response to this would be done, before the invasion started, we would not lose so many people. You know, I haven't been approached since I am in South Africa already since 2017 by media to speak about what was happening in Ukraine, not because it was very far, but because maybe the scope of those atrocities that Russians were making was not that big. Only now, when we see these numbers, when we see unfolding humanitarian catastrophe, we are speaking about it. Just think about it. We could prevent, all of us, all together, this invasion.
So, okay, specifically, the Russian ambassador has referred to I believe, if I'm quoting him correctly, the Odessa Massacre, which apparently happened on the 2nd of May 2014, where 42 Russians were pushed into a building. The building was set on fire, and this was apparently orchestrated by the Ukrainian military. Is there any truth to this?
Already the world have seen the top leadership of Russia, and obviously all the ambassadors in the world are saying the things that they are doing and accusing Ukraine in this. This will be my answer to you. And I even don't need to prove my words. The world is watching it in live stream, basically. So nothing to speak about. And we've seen this situation in Odessa. And it's my native city. I grew up there. And at that time I was there. Don't believe in Russian propaganda. And yes, people died because of, in that time. And Russia is having its own scenario of making different provocations and accusing Ukrainians in that. By the way, that is why the evacuation of foreigners from Ukraine was very difficult, and it was very important not to allow foreigners to follow Russian propaganda and to allow them to go on those corridors that Russians were promising, because we knew for sure that provocation could occur and then Ukrainians would be blamed in this.
Okay, so the second allegation, Ambassador, is that there are some Nazi elements in the Ukraine. What is your response to that?
I think that already the Russian actions, even the use of these letters that they're using while attacking Ukraine, shows who is real Nazis. The statistics in Ukraine regarding the different organizations is opened. And I always urge to look at our democratic form of the state and to see how many political parties with different views we have in Ukraine, and how many far left or far right parties you would find in the parliament, if you find one. So this is the answer.
What is the Azov Regiment?
For me, it's absolute neo-Nazist sign, as for many Ukrainians today. Just a couple of days ago, one of my friends sent me a cartoon, Soviet cartoon from 1979, which shows submarine with pioneers on it. And they are reaching a big ship, which sank, and they are watching at what is written on it. And it's a letter Z. And one pioneer says to another, but this is the Nazist sign. I don't know whether this is something that forecasts their history. And you know, the same story was told sometime with Simpson. You remember when the cartoon was shown, and then later in 20 years, you've seen the story was showing up. So this letter Z means exactly this.
Okay, so it's a Nazi organization, this Azov Regiment, but it doesn't have the widespread.
Not Azov, that sign that Russians have on their tanks, on
Okay.
their military. Not
Okay, but
Azov. That use Russia. Again, you didn't get me correct. I'm speaking
sorry.
about Russian way of sign of swastiks that they are showing on all their military equipment that they are wearing on as epaulets on their military uniform.
Okay, but this Azov Regiment, because it's an allegation that this is a Nazi organization within the Ukraine and it has some support within the military.
Let's really distinguish the nationalistic and other forms of how to say it, and other forms of explanations. So to be nationalist is to be Nazist. Yeah, there is part of the wing within the Azov that call themselves nationalists, but they don't call themselves fascists. And what they're doing now, they're protecting their land, their people on their own territory from invader. Is that what we are calling fascists? That's absolutely, again, we're coming back to the form of Russian propaganda and the way how they are trying to explain these atrocities that they're making in Ukraine. But there is no explanation.
Okay, so just to get you correctly, are you saying that if you defend your territory, you cannot be a Nazi?
No, I didn't say this. I say that the Azov battalion and the part of its members are very strong nationalists. But what they are doing today is that they are protecting the territory of Ukraine and the civil population of Ukraine against of Russian invaders. Do you call this Nazis?
No, definitely. Now I'm just I'm giving you the.
I'm also trying to understand the thinking of Russians. Moreover, I'm trying to understand those who support Russia, how they perceive any organization if it says very soundly and loudly that you are coming to take our lives, you are coming to take our land, we are protecting ourselves. If I'm doing the same here, speaking loudly, am I Nazist as well?
No, definitely not. Well, in my opinion, at least. Yes, so Ambassador, another allegation is that apparently your government can recreate a nuclear weapon and they were fearful that this might come to pass, so they had to invade the Ukraine.
This is another allegation, another story behind how Russians are trying to invent some new story why they're continuing the war in Ukraine. Which was proven not to be true by experts from MAGATE, and I think the issue was closed in the beginning of March already. You all know that Ukraine used to have nuclear weapons, as South Africa did, and that we gave up our nuclear weapons instead requesting the security guarantees, and we received them under Budapest Agreement, which said that Russia, Great Britain, and the United States would be the guarantors of Ukraine sovereignty and territorial integrity. So this was something that we've seen now, that because Ukraine abandoned its nuclear weapon, Russia was able to invade. They would never do it if we would have it. But Russia was the part of that agreement, and they were guarantors of our sovereignty. So coming back to the point And to your question that you asked in the very beginning, what would be the solution for Ukraine now? I think that the solution would be that we would receive very comprehensive, long-lasting and stable guarantees of different players in international society to our security. A kind of Budapest Agreement, but with much broader participants, including Russia and including all those countries who will want to join this agreement, to guarantee that any invasion in Ukraine by any foreign country is not possible.
Would you be willing to cede the eastern part of Ukraine to Russia to get this treaty, or is that non-negotiable, the Donbas region?
Donbas region is the integral sovereign part of Ukraine. It cannot be discussed or negotiated that Donbas is becoming something else but Ukraine. Definitely not.
And if there were to be a referendum in the eastern part of Ukraine and the majority voted to join Russia?
Referendum is something that must be organized on the territory of all Ukraine, isn't it? And then the referendum is possible only when Russian troops are out of Ukraine. Referendum is not possible when someone is holding a gun at your head. This is exactly what happened in Crimea, as if Crimea voted to become a member or to part of Russian Federation. We already seen it. Without any foreign supervisor at that stage to look at this referendum. So we know exactly the scenario. So we believe in democracy. We are able and will be ready to put on referendum different questions, as, for example, membership in NATO. And if in referendum, our people decide that we are willing and we continue to have this aspiration to become a member, this is something that we cannot change. And it is in our constitution, by the way, as well.
So do you think the majority of Crimeans want to rejoin the Ukraine? They are not happy under Russian control.
What we call the majority of Crimea today, how many internally displaced people we have in Ukraine since 2014 who fled Crimea. Those people who were not able to leave, they're still living there under huge suppression of Russian authorities, of temporary Russian authorities in Crimea. How many people were settled forcibly from Russia to Crimea? So what we call the population of Crimea today. I believe that those people who were displaced, whether they are now on the territory of Ukraine or they are out because of the war of Russia in Ukraine, they have to be able to vote and to say their strong voice as well. And you know, the issue of Crimean Tatars, something that we are raising on different platforms of international organizations. How many of Crimean Tatars were imprisoned, how many of them were kidnapped. We don't know about them anything. The Crimea is a separate issue that we have to discuss. And our approach in terms of peaceful negotiations with Russia would be that we have to resolve the issue of Crimea diplomatically, that we could dedicate a certain period of time to that, let's say 10, 15 years, to agree on the status of Crimea with Russia.
Interesting. So, Ambassador, why do you believe the Russians, the Russian government, President Vladimir Putin, refer to this as a special military operation and not an invasion or a war?
that's very obvious, because otherwise he would need to announce the war against the country, and then it would have at that stage very immediate reaction of both United Nations and all the foreign countries. At that stage he declared what he declared, and then we just were watching all together what was unfolding, but not Ukrainians were watching that, we were just trying to fight back. Now everyone realizes that this is not an operation. It's already the 56th day of 3-day operation of Russia.
And do you think it's perhaps also that most Russians are not in favor of this war? That's why you had to say military operation instead of an invasion, because most Russians would not favor this an invasion if he called it that.
Whatever you call it, today Russians are receiving the bodies of their soldiers back to Russia. And obviously, they are starting to realize that this is a real war. It's more than 20,000 soldiers and military people of Russia that already killed in Ukraine. It's something that you will not be able to hide or to burn in crematoriums that they are carrying with them with all their artillery columns, trying to hide their real losses and to report back in their countries. Absolutely different picture and situation and numbers, but you cannot hide it from people, because those mothers, wives, children, they are waiting for their fathers or for their men to come back, and they're not coming. So yeah.
Ambassador, on that note, what is happening currently in Mariupol? Are the Russians committing atrocities there?
You know that Azovstal, which is a big steel plant, underground, we have hundreds of people hiding, innocent people, children and women, and we are receiving videos from them asking for support, asking for hope, asking for liberation and to get out of there, asking for the future. I'm posting that personally every day in all my social media to attract attention and to say, this is what is happening. The city is destroyed completely. Russians are trying to take it because this is strategically important, and this would be one of the biggest cities to seize by Russian troops so far for 2 months of Russian war. It is destroyed. I mean, it's 90% destroyed city now. And now what we have to concentrate on is to give these people a chance to live. We have to stop Russia. And they are openly declaring that they are going to take it with any price. This is the real face. This is the real taking masks out of faces and showing who is the fascists.
What would you like to see the South African government do?
It is complicated because obviously we would want any government in the world to call on Russia to stop this war, to stop their invasion, to stop killing our civilians. This is the most important that we would want to see from any country and government.
And do you believe South Africa has that power to stop the Russians or exert some serious influence on the Russians?
Let me put it another way. All of us, we are members of the United Nations. Whether country is big or small, whether it's big South Africa or small Eswatini, we have equal rights and equal aspirations towards security and peace in the world. And we have an equal voice. And I do believe that every voice matters.
Do you believe you have an equal voice here in South Africa to speak with the South African government as opposed to the Russian ambassador? Do you feel you're treated equally?
I never compare myself and my country with any other country. And I'm speaking for my people and for my president and for my government. I'm building the dialogue with South Africa. And we must be very fair that our political engagements never were very active yet. And maybe what Russia did and Putin did by this invasion, they opened more opportunities for Ukraine and South Africa to establish and to deepen dialogue and cooperation.
Ambassador, would you be in favor of the world supporting a no-fly zone in the Ukraine?
I didn't get your question. Can you repeat, please?
Would you be in favor of the world supporting a no-fly zone in the Ukraine?
Of course. That's what we've been asking since the beginning of invasion. That would prevent so many deaths among our population.
And you don't think it will escalate? It won't lead to a World War III? The Russians will just stop flying their planes and it will end there?
We're talking about people, about lives. The world is watching how Ukraine is fighting back the second largest army in the world. The world united to provide Ukraine with assistance, support of that kind that they could do politically, diplomatically, economically. Do you think that it is already not a kind of new type of world war? Do you think that what Putin is doing now, it's not a provocation of this? The only problem is that we are paying this price every day. And that's why we need a joint effort of all the countries to stop Putin. That's why we are calling for sanctions, because we believe when Russia is weakened economically, it will not be able to go further in Ukraine. What we're seeing now, it's not only that Russia concentrating in their attacks in the east of Ukraine. They recently bombed Lviv. And how many? 7 civilians were killed. Kiev, again, is under attacks. What signal Russia is sending to the world by doing this?
Yeah, no, a terrible one. But Ambassador, would you be in favor of an oil and gas embargo, that the entire world should apply an oil and gas embargo to Russia and buy no more gas or petrol, oil for that matter?
I would be in favor, and my government will be in favor of all the measures that can stop Russia.
Okay, you can't be any more clearer than that. Ambassador, so how do you see this war ending? How do you see the future, if you were to gaze into a crystal ball, how do you see this conflict finally ending?
First of all, the world will never be the same. We understand it already. The two bordering countries, as Ukraine and Russia, will always remember this war. The concept that Russia was putting behind this invasion was that Ukrainians and Russians are the same nation and the same people. Putin wrote a special book on this. And what people don't really know is that Ukrainians and Russians are two different people that never were brothers. We were fighting during the history with different regimes for our independence and sovereignty. Our grandfathers, grandfathers paid their lives to secure the notion of our identity as Ukrainians, our language. What Russia did now, that brought us even more far from each other. That means that when the war finished, we will need to find a way how we're going to coexist on the borders of each other, remembering all these atrocities. That's why we will need really stable, long-lasting security guarantees from different countries of the world, from those who are willing to provide this securities. I'm repeating myself, to support stability, not only in the region, not only in Europe, but in the whole world. What we've seen through this Russian aggression in Ukraine, that this war affected all the world. And here in South Africa, we already feel consequences of it. That's why it's important to stop Russia as soon as possible, to have smaller consequences.
Do you think the Russian government will abide by such a treaty? I mean, didn't they violate treaties by invading the Ukraine?
I believe that if we really have a lot of partners and signatories to such a treaty, such an agreement, that will definitely stop or prevent Russia of doing this in the future.
Yeah, well, fair enough. Thank you, Ambassador. I want to thank you so much for your time. I want to give you one last opportunity if you want to add something or answer a question that I didn't ask you.
Well, I would say thank you for all South Africans who are supporting Ukraine and for the assistance that already provided, for being not indifferent for Ukrainian lives. I also would want to thank the President Ramaphosa for having a discussion yesterday with my president. Yesterday evening, if you noticed, we had a telephone call between our presidents. It is important for Ukraine as for sovereign independent state to hear a strong voice of the leader of the continent and of the country representing the G20. So I think that this is already something that will give us a long way and roadmap for our future relationship. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Ambassador. Thank you so much for your time. And we really hope this conflict, there's some peaceful resolution to this conflict. To our viewers, please show your appreciation if you've made it this far by liking this video, sharing it as widely as possible, and subscribing to our channel. My name is Donald, and you've been watching WorldView.